ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Good morning, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And you're with us on our ASEAN Daily. So, all the way to Australia, we want to report a breaking news in a way. Do you know that Tony Abbott is no longer in service?
That's right, and apparently he has been ousted by Malcolm Turnbull, which just happened last night, and it became such a frenzy all over Facebook and even Twitter.
Wow.
That everyone was so shocked that, Tony Abbott could just be taken out of power like that.
Yeah, and I mean, congratulations to the new Prime Minister of Australia, Malcolm Turnbull. But who the hell he is?
That's true. We don't really know who he is, but apparently he is from the Central Party, the Centre-Right Liberal Party, and there's been a lot of problems regarding Abbott's popularity recently in the country. And it's great to see that they don't have to put up with someone that they're not happy with, the people in Australia, and they actually got a new Prime Minister in order to satisfy them.
And you know, Tony Abbott was infamous for being against gay marriage. But for Malcolm Turnbull, he's a bit different. He actually supports climate change action and gay marriage. So he is very much like in tune with the current affairs.
That's right.
Of
and
society.
Some of the reasons that the people were not happy with Tony Abbott, I think one of the things, according to the news, is that he was planning to actually drop a few ministers in the cabinet. Sounds a bit familiar. But instead of being scared of him, all these ministers got together and said, you cannot do this to us. So if you want to drop us, you go out. We are staying.
Wow.
That's what happened.
So you know what? The same kind of nudge move cannot be happen in Australia.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see Australian politics playing in the same kind of situation like in Malaysia, but the outcome is, it's totally different. We see now there's a new Prime Minister for Australia. So moving on, another global update. So we all know about the incident of the crane collapse in the Mecca, and some people have provide their opinions and analysis about it. And one of the opinion is Mecca crane collapse shows the dangers of the city construction boom. I mean, for years and years, there were articles of people lambasted the Saudi government for overdevelop the Mecca, the place where people perform their Hajj.
Okay.
Yeah.
And even after these 100 people died, it seems that a lot of people complain that the Saudis are ruining the holy city, like what you mentioned, because of the over developing and adding on a lot of things to it. And for years, the Mecca residents have actually lived with the rampant building and development of the Saudi leaders, not just to expand the holy site, but also, of course, to receive more than 2 million visitors during the Hajj last year, and also surrounding the metropolis. And that's why people of Mecca and Hajj have been suffering for the last 15 years, it seems.
I mean, I can totally understand from both perspectives.
Right.
From the perspective of the Saudi government, of course, you have more visitors. I mean, it's a form of tourism in a way.
Yeah.
If you see it in the way the visitors are spending, you know, and you see a lot of malls were being built just to cater to the needs of the visitors.
And that's understandable.
Yeah.
As well.
But on the other hand, you have to know this is not just another tourism. This is a holy site. So you have to take into account the feelings and the opinions of the residents there. I mean, they are the gatekeeper, or they are the one who would safeguard the sanctity of the holy site. And I think their complaints are perfectly valid. Yeah, in this sense.
And there's also, according to Dr. Irfan Al-Alawi, who is the executive director of the Islamic Heritage Research Foundation, he actually said that this accident is not even a surprise to him because there have been many incidents before this, and there is actually no proper health or safety system in place. Like, for example, in London, he said, when you have construction work, the public are kept away. But the problem is this, was that all the machineries, all the cranes were all just lying around right above where people were actually walking about. And that is something that should not happen. The construction should have sort of a barrier to tell people to keep out because it's a dangerous place. But that was not done, and I think that's the biggest issue here at the moment.
That's true. And a lot of people die from all over the world. Altogether 100 people, and of course hundreds more were injured. From Malaysia, 10 Malaysians were injured and 6 more are missing right now. And from the Indonesia side, 10 Indonesians unfortunately perished at the crane collapse in the Mecca mall center there. So I think at the end of the day, I mean, if the South government is really serious about preserving the area, they should be, and also the global Muslim community, if they are really serious at ensuring that people are able to have a smooth Hajj and at the same time are able to preserve, the sanctity of the holy site, there should be, I guess, a committee, they always have this royal commission thingy. Perhaps they should have one just for Hajj.
Well, they should, and that could actually probably improve the confidence of the people as well, and to ensure that things like this don't happen again.
That's true. Anyway, we'll take one short break. When we return, we'll talk more on the political side of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene. You're
Hi.
back.
This is Gowri, and yes, we're back on our ASEAN Daily, where we are sharing news from all over Southeast Asia with our listeners today.
So, continuing our discussion, do you know China is building its first international undersea cable with ASEAN? Wow, what is happening with China right now?
That
Making
sounds
all these
pretty
cool
awesome.
gadgets and stuff.
Exactly. And it's going to be the first international undersea cable that would actually carry information and data flow between the country, which is China, with all the other Southeast Asian nations. And this actually sounds pretty high-tech as well, the way that they're transforming information underwater.
Wow. And state-owned China Unicorn, of all the name Unicorn, one of the main telecommunications providers in China is cooperating with Myanmar's telecommunication operators to build the underwater cable. And this is according to the Vice General Manager of China United Telecommunications Corporation, Jiang Zexin. And it's also one of the parent. It's actually the parent of China Unicorn, a land cable a land cable between China and Myanmar is under construction at a cost. Guess what? $50 million.
Wow, that's still less.
Less. Yeah.
I think we're thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Can you imagine how many underwater cable that we could have?
we could have built, right?
I know, right?
Malaysia to Japan to India to Australia,
Singapore.
Exactly. And it would make it so much easier to transfer information as well. And it seems that this one is definitely a good step forward by China as well in terms of improving its relationship with ASEAN, considering how shaky the relationship has been and all the scandals that we've been dealing with in the past. And hopefully China will also buck up in other areas as when it comes to the South China Sea crisis as well.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it goes back to the relationship between China and ASEAN countries.
Yeah, I think China and Myanmar have strong relationship. In fact, China and majority of the CLMV, maybe not Vietnam, have good relationship. And this is part of China's bigger picture.
Of course.
Of course, you have heard about the 21st century maritime Silk Road. So China has proposed this thing called Information Harbor Initiative last year in September as to create this information hub that will encompass Southeast Asia together for their bigger plan of the Maritime Silk Road.
And of course, the Maritime Silk Road is also aimed at connecting all the countries from China to Southeast Asia, even other Asian countries as well that will be involved. And it looks like one of the important things for China is in terms of connectivity and also making sure that information gets transferred quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, and because at the end of the day, greater information flow, meaning greater trade and services. And on the other hand, mayors in Southeast Asia also had their own forum. Do you know that, Gowri?
No, I didn't know that.
It's called the ASEAN Mayor Forum, and they have agreed on 5 recommendations.
ASEAN Mayor Forum, that sounds interesting. It's just like
Do you know your mayor, by the way, from Penang?
No, I don't.
Okay. I also don't know from KL.
That's good. So they have apparently come up with 5 recommendations as a collective agreement through the signing. And guess what? This signing was done of the inscription on a marble stone weighing 18 tons. Am I reading the right thing here?
Yes, you are.
That's what happened.
That's not batu bersurat, by the way.
Okay, so let's go through the 5 recommendations that they came up with. So I guess the first one is to support ASEAN community in the welfare of its citizens. And secondly, we have to make ASEAN as regional, national, and local power rooted in each city. And the third, that there must be pillars of ASEAN community in each city. Fourth is to make ASEAN Secretariat in Makassar. I'm assuming that's in the Philippines. And fifth
Actually, Makassar is in
Indonesia.
Yeah.
And the fifth is to form specifically colleges with ASEAN standards. What do you think about these 5 recommendations?
I think these are really, really great recommendations, especially you want to put ASEAN awareness at the center and at the consciousness of city dwellers. So, I mean, but then that's the thing. It's just recommendation. So we do not know whether they are going to implement it in each of the cities in Southeast Asia.
I think it's a challenge for each mayor in the cities as well when it comes to making the place regional or making it national, that you attract more tourists as well. How do you do that without altering the original purpose or the original landscape of the city, at the same time making it more attractive to people from outside so that they would want to come and visit the place.
That's true.
And also in terms of mindset, I guess the people who are there, as in how will you encourage them to think in a more regional way, since that's what we are going for with the ASEAN community.
And it's not just about being regional, it's also about being competitive with other cities in Southeast Asia and continuing the building of smart cities that are interconnected with other cities in this region. In this case, of course, we want the awareness to be there, but there's also some form of infrastructure development and development of human resources, which is important, but it's also one of the crucial point of local government that they need to emphasize on and need to focus on. So, talking about government, let's go back to Malaysia.
Let's go back to Malaysia. What's
Gowri?
happening? What more is happening in Malaysia? I cannot
Gowri?
stand the haze already.
No, I mean, what's happening in Malaysia right now is social media is the culprit. This is according to our Prime Minister Najib.
Yes, and he has insisted that he will not resign despite mounting accusations on him, because he said that this is because of social media, all the spread of falsehood, all these defamatory remarks about him that's floating around. It was just all started by Facebook and Twitter, and it doesn't really carry any weight apparently.
Well, I mean, that's the difference between the era of Tun Mahathir and now we have Prime Minister Najib Razak. I believe Tun Mahathir will have the exact same kind of situation that Najib is facing right now, which is greater public feedback towards him. Whether the feedback is favorable towards him or not, that's another thing altogether. But I think he need to realize, at least on a societal level, that today's world is so different. Whatever you say, whatever you do, there will always be people saying things about you, and you just have to prepare yourself.
Right, and it's also harder to, I guess, twist your way around, if I may. Like you were saying, things are different these days, and everything that you say is also being recorded, whether on Facebook, on Twitter, on blogs, and it's so easy to just take a screenshot, just store that particular article where you actually said something, and then a few months later you want to say something else, and it's so easy to compare. People start making memes on Twitter, memes on Facebook to just say that, oh, you said this a few months back, and how can you say this now? So I think it's becoming even harder for people, or even for prime ministers, to go back on their words, or to say something and then do something different.
You're definitely right on that. And what is even more, I guess, harder for prime ministers of any country in this sense is people share news more frequently. So he was actually referring to the Al Jazeera program that talk about the Mongolian translator Altantuya Sharibu, the 2006 murder. But the thing is, in the past, I would say 20 years ago, in the past, if such program were being aired, maybe a couple of people would have seen it if they subscribe to Al Jazeera in Astro.
That's true.
But if they don't, they might not have even know that this kind of program existed. But with social media, people can share it constantly at any time, anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not fair to just blame social media for this, because at the end of the day, it's what you do and what you say as a prime minister as well. Like I said earlier, everything is being recorded, and if you say something and you act according to your words, then I guess people will not simply go around creating rumors on social media. And since there was a new coverage as well that sort of revived this whole case, and I think this is also the time for our prime minister to prove himself. If he feels like he's innocent and people are just attacking him, then come forward and say something. Just like what happened with the 1MDB, so people can have more confidence or faith in you.
I totally agree with that. And I mean, Najib himself said that he will not back down, which is a good
sign of a leader.
Yeah.
Determined. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know what to say, but I mean, it's something good coming out from him. But I think at the end of the day, action speaks louder than anything else. So if he does his job as a prime minister, I think Malaysians eventually will appreciate that. But if it's the other way around, I guess the next election will determine what kind of future we will have in Malaysia. So anyway, moving on to another news. Again, this is about Australia. So apparently some Australians are helping Indonesians to fight for ISIS.
And Indonesian authorities suspect an Australian man has been raising money and sending it offshore to pay for Indonesians to travel to Syria to fight with the Islamic State. And why this person would do that is beyond me, beyond anyone else. But it's interesting to see that people are actually paying other people to go to ISIS. And we don't even know if this person is actually involved directly with the Islamic State or not. But he's believed to sort of being the catalyst to provide the financial aid for people to go over to the Islamic State.
I think the dynamic of the Islamic State is totally different from other terrorist networks or groups. It's not like Al-Qaeda, it's not like Jama'ah Islamiyah. It's not regional, it's global, and is based on ideology rather than on leadership or support. I mean, people fight for IS or Islamic State, not because they believe in the leader as much. Probably some of them wouldn't even know who is the leader of IS,
Yeah.
but they fight for the ideology that IS stands for, and that's very dangerous.
And this is still an allegation, though it's not confirmed yet, because they have tracked 5 billion rupiah so far from bank accounts in Australia to at least 10 different accounts in Indonesia, and they are suspecting that the money is being used to fund recruitment in Indonesia, so these people can go over. And of course, like you said, it's very dangerous because it involves ideology here that we're talking about, and it's something that we've been trying to curb. And when it comes to the mindset, it requires a lot more work. It makes it even harder to change someone's mind.
That's true. Anyway, we'll take another one short break. When we return, we'll talk more on the economic and social cultural side of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
So we are back again on the economic side of Southeast Asia. Gowri, do you know that Indonesia's fish production is the highest in Southeast Asia?
I would guess so, since they have access to a lot of waters.
Yeah, so
around
many
the
islands
island.
and waters. Yes.
And this is, of course, according to the chairman of the board, Indonesia's traditional fisherman unity, who said that Indonesia's fish production was the highest compared to the other 9 countries in Southeast Asia. And that also means that the Indonesian waters alone are able to produce 40% of the fishes in ASEAN.
Wow. But unfortunately, in the context of competitive and economic value of fisheries, Indonesia did not have a strategic position because Indonesia was only in second rank. I mean, previously, Minister of Marine and Fisheries Susi Pujastuti said that most marine and fisheries exports from China and Thailand were from Indonesian waters. And their export values were about 70 to 90% from the Indonesian waters.
So I guess it's also a matter of fact that Indonesia needs to have a proper position on this in order to actually be competitive out there. Because it doesn't matter if you're producing that much of fishes.
I agree with you. But on the other hand, I just want to say that, the future is all about being sustainable. And I do think that, rather than being competitive in fishing, why don't we try a more sustainable and efficient way of fishing, focusing more on not fulfilling the demand, but also ensuring that the environment is, being protected.
Right. Well, when it comes to overfishing, it's also another issue, of course, because we already have a few fishes going extinct. I don't know if people know about it, and one of them is tuna, because we consume so much of tuna, and one of the reasons why I don't take tuna anymore. So I guess you're right, overfishing is a problem, and if we don't start controlling it, we're gonna have more and more fishes extinct, and then you just won't have your favorite dish at the restaurant anymore.
That's true. On the other hand, Laos and Vietnam are launching project to exploit salt mines.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And they are going to launch this project to exploit potash salt mines and produce about 320,000 tons per year. And this was announced in a ceremony attended by Vietnamese Prime Minister and also his Lao counterpart, Thusing Thamawong.
Yeah, and according to the Vietnamese Prime Minister Nguyen Tan Dong, said that the project is part of a master plan to develop the chemical industry in his country. It will also contribute to the development of the local economy and will promote economic relations between the two states.
Right.
Obviously, you would.
Right. So they are looking at developing relationships, or not developing, but sort of strengthening the relationship between Laos and Vietnam. And I think the Lao counterpart also agreed, saying that the production should definitely start in the near future, and it has a cost of 522 million USD, and among the largest projects that Vietnam will be holding abroad.
I think for them being neighbors, is aptly for Vietnam to invest in Laos. Laos is probably the poorest country in Southeast Asia. They need those kind of investment. And the great thing is, Vietnam is the third among the largest investor in Laos, with 259 businesses worth US dollar 3,900 millions.
And talking about that, since Vietnam is, since Laos is one of the poorest countries in Southeast Asia, and perhaps they can also look at more ways to, on how they can attract more investors to go into the country and boost their trade and investments part, so they can be more competitive.
That's great. And on the other hand, talking about being more competitive, do you know Myanmar is seeing itself to be the emerging Asian leader in oil and gas exploration.
And this is announced despite the slump in energy prices, oil and gas fields in Myanmar. And they expect that Myanmar will soon be the busiest in Asia as foreign and local investors begin to ratchet up their explorations. Seems like Myanmar is becoming quite attractive to overseas, and perhaps Laos can learn from them as well.
I think Petronas will have a run of its money.
Probably, yeah.
Now Myanmar is like, hey, I'm like the biggest, man. and according to Waronon Laprabang, a senior vice president of PTT Exploration and Production, oil prices are in fact creeping up. So this is just temporary, the slump in oil prices.
Right. And they also said that exploration must be carried out regardless of the energy prices. And this means that service contractors will be in high demand, and I guess that also creates more job opportunities for the people in Myanmar. And the government will also be starting a new era of deep water exploration in the country. And I think this also goes back to the elections and who will be taking over the country and who exactly will be interested to carry on with this idea of starting a new era of deep water exploration.
Business will be as usual regardless of who will rule Myanmar, in my opinion. But the great thing about this focus on being the leader in oil and gas exploration is they are also creating job opportunities for the locals, who make up 85% of total staff of a lot of the explorational work that will be happening soon. Just to give a bit of insight about the Myanmar offshore areas. So they divided into 51 blocks. 18 are under operation, 20 new blocks were awarded last year, and 13 are in the government's hands. So it shows that Myanmar is really serious about trying to expand its seas.
And we have to start looking out for Myanmar on the spotlight.
There you go. Anyway, we'll take another one short break. When we return, we'll talk more on the socio-cultural side of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, you're back with Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And of course, at our social and cultural news, we want to start off with science.
That's
not
right.
Culture.
Not society, not art.
With science. Well, I'm really fascinated with what is happening, the discovery of Pluto, as you remember, a couple of months ago. And scientists are actually baffled as the newest Pluto pictures reveal land of mountains and dunes.
Seems that there are possible mountains, dunes, and also multiple layers of haze on the dwarf planet Pluto. And these images that were taken by the New Horizons spacecraft swept past the distant body in July, and some scientists are saying that they reveal an even more diverse landscape than people have previously imagined what it looked like in Pluto.
I totally, I'm as baffled as the scientists, because I always thought that Pluto is just a mass body of gases.
I see cold
Gas.
ball. That's what they made it sound
Yeah,
like.
and what we are seeing right now is there's a diverse geologic features. Shows the atmospheric haze surrounding Pluto with multiple layers. What's more, the haze creates a twilight effect that enables new horizons to study places on the night side that scientists never expected to see. So you have light at night.
Exactly, and this is definitely a new development in that sense. And I think the person responsible for taking Pluto out of its planet status was actually the very famous Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is a revered scientist. And well, for Pluto, for all these new developments, it seems that there's definitely more than meets the eye from what you can just observe from the surface.
Gowri, I want to ask you one question about Pluto.
Yes.
Do you know that? Do you? The question is, have Pluto ever orbited the sun?
While it was still a planet, I don't think so. Because it's really, really far away.
Yeah.
And I can imagine the distance that it would have to take going around the sun.
So I just found out that Pluto actually never made a full orbit around the sun while it was still considered a planet.
That's interesting.
It's very interesting. And
so that's right. It shouldn't be a planet because it never made a full orbit.
So anyway, do you know that there's an app to detect haze in Southeast Asia, and it's called Air for ASEAN? I'm not kidding you.
Well, I think at this point, the last thing we need is an app because it's right in your face. And this morning, I could actually smell the haze when I walk out of my apartment, and I'm like, what is that smell?
It's all the way from Sumatra.
Exactly, and it's getting really, really bad. I think yesterday was one of the worst because I could barely see anything, any building from outside the balcony.
So apparently this app for ASEAN, you can actually check it on your app store, produced by the Thai government, sends a smartphone a pretty if depressing map of the parts of Southeast Asia afflicted with the haze, the foul smoke that has been almost an annual curse for the 2 decades, since 2 decades now.
Yeah, and I think the depressing places would be Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. And there was even another image on Facebook yesterday. I don't know if you know the movie The Maze Runner.
Oh, yeah.
And people Photoshop it and put fog and smoke around it.
Really?
And call it the Haze Runner.
That's amazing.
Things have gotten that bad. I think we definitely need this app, and if this app comes with the API readings and some precautions, that would be great as well.
But you know, it's not really that well functioning.
Okay.
A lot of the pages are still with the word soon. But you can always go to other app. I was looking through the app store. I saw Singapore has quite a number of haze monitoring apps that you can use to monitor what is happening in the region. In fact, even the Malaysian government have a couple of sites that show the different region in Malaysia that is being affected by the haze.
Right. And I really hope that the government will do something about this as well, because it's just getting so bad, and people are being advised to stay indoors and drink more water and eat more vegetables, but there isn't much going on, I think, from the government side. I haven't heard anything vocal from the Prime Minister or what in terms of addressing this.
He's too busy with his own haze.
Around here.
But anyway, before we end the show, I just want to wish you a happy Hari Malaysia. It's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow, that's right. 16th of September, where we'll be celebrating Malaysia Day, the day that we all came together as one and became Malaysia.
Yeah, and just some random facts about Malaysia in case you don't know. The name Malaysia derived from the word Melayu or Malay that could come from the Sungai Melayu in Sumatra. Interesting. The river name itself is derived from the Dravidian. It's a Tamil word for Malay or hill. So probably it's the land of hills, I suppose.
Probably. And another one is Tongkat Ali, of course, a small
yes, Gowri.
tree with thick and deep, straight roots.
Yes.
And very common in the hills of Malaysia. Why are you looking at me like that? I'm not a guy. I don't take Tongkat Ali to increase my sex drive. Thank you.
You haven't explained what the hell is Tongkat Ali.
It's a Malay Viagra because it has some testosterone-like effect on mice, and so it works on people as well. And the extracts of Tongkat Ali is generally used in power drinks like coffee and other ginseng drinks. Yes, I do not take Tongkat Ali. Can we move on?
Okay, moving on. Well, I suppose Malaysians love to make friends and have a
Yeah.
lot of friends because according to a survey in 2010, Malaysians have the highest number of Facebook friends with an average of 233 friends. The Japanese
Wow.
were the pickiest with only 29 friends.
Actually, it's true. We all have like 200, 300 friends that we don't even know on Facebook.
Something wrong with us.
Exactly.
Anyway, happy Hari Malaysia from Durian ASEAN.
Yes, Selamat Hari Malaysia. Hope all of you guys have a good holiday tomorrow.